The moderator for today's panel is Karina Kwok, the Head of Professional Practices in IHRP. Karina will be introducing the panel and will be facilitating the conversation for the next hour. Karina, please.
Thank you, Andy, and also congratulations to you. You're one of the conferees today. Thank you, everybody, for staying on for this exciting panel discussion on entitled Championing Growth and Wellbeing at Work. Now, a significant number of employees have actually expressed discomfort in discussing well-being and highlighting the lack of understanding and lack of open communications as challenges at work. HR, therefore, plays a very important role in balancing employee needs and concerns while prioritizing business outcomes as a strategic partner. Therefore, I'm very pleased that we have a really great panel today, which is a mix of business and HR leaders on the panel. And I'm pleased to have invited Ms. Jenny Kwok, Chief Executive Officer of Excellent PT Limited, Ting Teck Wei, Operations Director of Inspire Tech, Isabel Lim, Deputy Director of HR and Work Transformation of Excellent PT Limited, as well as Ms. Shane Yan, co-founder of Growth Beans and chair of the Growth Collective Singapore. I'm going to give them all a little bit of time, about 2 minutes each, so that they can do a little bit of self-introduction, but we will flash their bios in the background just so that you can also read off some of their illustrious achievements and accomplishments. Please, we'll start off with, I think, Jenny.
Thanks, Karina, and really it's a great pleasure, great privilege to be here sharing the day with IHRP team as well as all the conferees. Congratulations, right? I'm sure your journey has been a tremendous one, so and wishing everyone much more success ahead, right? Thanks for having me here. A quick sharing of what I do. I'm heading up an enterprise ICT operations and project management company, ExcelLink. So in our business, it is a lot of people support, people management in order for us to deliver services to our clients. Besides ExcelLink, I'm also very active with SGTech, which is the Singapore IT Federation. For that, I'm with the Singapore Enterprise Chapter as Vice Chairperson for the Executive Committee. And I'm also glad to be with the SGTech Talent Steering Committee, where it's very interesting, especially interesting because I get to join in coming up with manpower initiatives. And glad to say SGTech has also participated in some of the well-being support campaigns, because at the end of the day, we do want to ensure our workforce in the tech industry continues to stay well supported and productive. So thank you for letting me share what I do. Yeah.
Thanks very much, Jen. Yeah, I think next we have Isabel coming on.
Hi, good morning, everyone. So I'm actually with ExcelLink as well, and I've spent many years working in the HR industry, and obviously I'm also certified in IHRP. So I think I guess for me, the passion is really about the people, being in HR, in how we can sort of help them in their journey from when they actually start the employee life cycle to actually taking care of how they're going to actually grow with the organization that they're with. And so most of the time I've helped to, hire good people to actually match what we need in the company. And I'm also a very strong advocate for employee wellness. This is really something I'm very passionate about, particularly for mental health, which I think has always held a lot of stigma. And I think now with the COVID period coming on and gone through, everyone has become more receptive in hearing more about just beyond physical and emotional challenges. So we're really here at HR to build up growing our employees, as well as helping them through their physical and emotional challenges so that they can better support the organization that they're working for. In my spare time, I try to take walks, and I also enjoy, talking with people, trying to understand some of their challenges and how best I can help develop solutions to help them grow with the company. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you. May we have Teck Wei give a little bit of an intro of yourself?
Hi, yes, good afternoon. And yeah, also congratulations to all the conferees of this session. Yeah, so my name is Teck Wei. I'm actually the operations director, come a bit of product management with Inspire Tech. We are actually a software company. So based on my background, you can see that I'm probably going to represent more in terms of how employee well-being and growth is tied to business outcomes. Because in a small company, that is something that I do constantly, focusing in terms of team performance and having that growth and well-being to support the overall business agenda. So prior to this role, I actually went through more external consultancy roles, whether is it ERP systems or IT security related topics with EY. So hope to provide a different perspective and from a business angle, from an operations angle, to see how employee growth and well-being, this topic, right, also ties in with business outcomes. In my sort of like time whereby when I feel a little bit overwhelmed, sometimes tying back to this topic, right, is really I was thinking through, and some of the things that really work for me is to take some time, walk around, whether in parks or what, right, and be present with the environment. So especially in software industry as well as in Singapore environment, everything is so fast paced. Sometimes things just pass by us without us noticing, and it's kind of cool to just like take a bit of a pace to be present with the surroundings, and then we can have that state of mind to move on for new challenges in the next new day. Yeah, thank you.
Great, thanks, Teck Wei. As you can see, all of them are very passionate about well-being and how do you take care of safe, self-care. Now, Shane, before I pass over to you, maybe I would like to take the opportunity to announce the exciting MOU that IHRP has signed with the Growth Collective, and then I can pass it over to you to actually introduce yourself and share a little bit more about the Growth Collective and the exciting campaign that you have in place. So just so that, I can make a formal announcement to everyone, on April 1st, IHRP and the Growth Collective actually signed an MOU. And in the MOU, we are talking about how can we bring growth circles to the IHRP community. Growth circles is really a structured way of, honing people's skills, as well as offering a forum for HR community to come together to share and learn from each other. We are also in the midst of discussing about turning their 4-day growth facilitators training into a skill badge, so that you can also be appointed a growth facilitator to run growth circles within your organization. So I won't steal Shane's thunder. I'll let her do a little bit more in-depth sharing on that. Over to you, Shane. Introduce yourself and then share a little bit more about growth circles. Thanks.
Thank you, Karina, and also congratulations to all the conferees. So yeah, I'm Shane. I'm on a mission to help people grow in a meaningful and connected world. And it's something it's a formula that I've discovered together with my co-founder, Shamantha, who's my twin, in case you meet someone like me along the streets, that we discovered in the last 8 years. And that's something that's really necessary for inclusivity, well-being, and employability. So apart from being co-founder of Growth Beans, the chair of Growth Collective SG, I also sit on the steerco of the SG Mental Wellbeing Network. And I'm also an active member in the SG Tech Singapore Enterprise chapter as a co-opted member, EXCO member, supporting the talent pillar. So I think I do what I do today to deepen self-awareness and resilience in people, develop their social and leadership skills, and build that deeper connections amongst people through the coaching-infused workshops and activities, because I can see that transformative process and the effects on their well-being, their engagement, and really how it's also beneficial in supporting organizational culture and changes. So as a social enterprise, it's also really being able to make coaching accessible to as many people as possible and to enable greater inclusivity, well-being, and employability. And it's something that the Growth Circles is like a medium or a platform that can enable that to reach out to more people. So in terms of the self-care component, I think as a social entrepreneur, a daughter, wife, and a parent of a 3-year-old kid, I would say days can often be very overwhelming. But what I have discovered though is that giving my 3-year-old kid full attention is what gives me self-care, because I have to be present for her, and I also have to give my, and it's also a way to give myself permission to do things I like, right? Which is doing all the kid stuff, have that creative expressions, and of course laugh at all the funny things that a kid would say. So that's today what I do a lot for my self-care. In terms of the Growth Collective, and I'd like to share a bit more about the Growth Collective. The Growth Collective SG was formed in 2021, thanks to the Johnson & Johnson Foundation for also like backing us up and funding the entire movement. And it's made up of 7 different organizations. So you can see over there in the circle, like 7 organizations with growth beans spearheading the entire movement. And our aim is really to create a world where everyone grows and feels supported, because with the different organizations that represents like SSA, education institutions, people, social enterprises, we are on the, we represent different parts of the mental health spectrum. So we have found that in order to enable community growth and well-being, it's about being able to focus on the social skills, having that space for people to also embrace vulnerabilities, which is a new courage, and co-create that community for that genuine connection and sense of belonging. I guess in HR terms, that's really about employee engagement as well. So how do we do that? Then as Karina has mentioned, you heard like there's the growth circles, and it's something that we want to bring to HR. And we also have growth facilitators training. And when we look at it as a growth collective, we always look at a growth pathway. So we are excited that, you know, we have signed the MOU with IHRP, because a collective movement and a Together We Grow movement to enable the well-being and growth for everyone requires a whole ecosystem. And so you will see earlier on in the circle, there's the U part, that's the ecosystem where we embrace everyone to come on board as well to support this movement. So we go on to the next bit. I just wanted to share a little bit more about the framework of what we do and how we do things. And this also tied a bit more to myself on my own journey when I suffered my own panic attacks in some years ago. The key part here, if you see outside the green circle that says me, it's actually on social well-being, emotional well-being, psychological well-being, and spiritual well-being. Because if we want to look at well-being, it's always about being able to place the individual at the center and looking at these 4 aspects of that well-being to see if they have the people around to support, whether we know the emotions that we are feeling and whether we can regulate it before we interact with others as well, whether psychological well-being is the confidence and the mindset that we have, and spiritual well-being is also the purpose that we have. And it was these 4 different things that actually helped me to recover from that panic attack episode over 6 months without any medication. And through as I was sharing about growth circles earlier on, based on 8 years of applied research, we found that regardless of nationality, race, language, basically, no matter how diverse we are, everybody wants the same thing, and that is to really be human. So if you see the element of being, we all want a place to just be and to belong, and to then also to build skills and relationships in order to grow together. And that requires the relationships to be built and then the social skills. So in terms of this growth circle that Karina has shared, is a safe space to develop people's skills and self-care. We created this web app, but there are 4 essential roles that people can play. And there's one that I want to actually share with everybody here, which is the role of encourage. Because how often have you received encouragement, and how often do we encourage others? So if you think about like your employees over there who always say that they want more encouragement or recognition, this role is therefore very important, because the most time that we actually encourage someone, especially like parents amongst us, is actually through our children when they reach the different milestones. But as they grow older, or as we grew older as a person, we receive less of this because there were less milestones. But if that was our mental frame and schema of how we entered the world, then this becomes really important, because this is what we crave. So if there's one role that we all can play from this panel discussion, is also about being able to encourage. So that's the growth circle. And with the growth circle, we also have growth facilitators who can then helm a growth circle session And this is a 4 days training program. And any participant who goes through this will get a certificate of attendance endorsed by SUSS and the Growth Collective SG, and it will soon be accredited by IHRP for the Employee Wellbeing Skills Badge. So in this, well, the Growth Circle, the framework works, as has been attested by the 150 other trained growth facilitators and the more than 200 people that have come to our Growth Circle session. What really makes a difference is also the growth facilitator who helms the space. So it's important to know the kind of common growth language that we can use to create that culture of psychological safety that has compassion and empathy. And of course, being able to develop people and enable inclusivity is a key aspect as well of like the psychological safety and helping people to look at growth. Then another most important part is psychological first aid, because we need to know when someone is moving from stress to distress so that we can signpost them in time from a well-being angle. So that's so with the growth circles and growth facilitator training, we are really hoping to bring this more to the HR community to support, firstly, your own self-care, help us to bridge more connections. I saw in the chat earlier on, everyone's looking to like connect more with one another. But this is IHRP Growth Circles then will be a place for us to connect more deeply, to support one another, and also find ways on how we can then bring it back to our workplace to support others. And these are, apart from the IHRP Growth Circles, these are already the existing growth circles in the community today that we're excited about. And then the last slide will then share some of the numbers I had mentioned earlier on in terms of how many, the level of impact and how many we have run today. So that's all on my end. If, of course, if any more questions, I'm happy to take them later on in terms of the Growth Collective SG and this the work that we are doing here.
Great, thanks so much, Shane. One thing that all of us have in common, I mean, Shane's the one that instructed us, but Jenny, Tidway, Isabel, and I actually did undergo the 4 days of training. And personally, I would attest that it's really good and robust information. And while it was 4 days of training, I think it was well worth it. So definitely something for you guys to look forward to and consider. Maybe now I can kind of open up the question and answer to the panel, where I do have some questions prepared. Don't fret. For those on the line, we do have time slotted for you to ask questions as well. So as you're doing the listening, feel free to pop your questions into the Q&A box. If you have a specific questions to any of the panelists, please maybe just highlight who you're addressing it to, so it'll be easier for us to direct the questions accordingly. So maybe we kick off with asking anyone, Jenny, Tidway, or Isabel, if you can share a little bit more about how do you personally define well-being, and why have this conversation about well-being really become so much more of a hot topic and garnering greater traction at work? Anybody wants to kick off?
Maybe
well,
I'd like to go first. There's no advantage to going first. Definition of well-being, for me, it's and I think for many would be a sense of personal mental balance. Like you feel like everything's in good equilibrium, right? Whether it's work or on the home front or your own personal satisfaction. It is also about having good health. It is also about having good relationships, especially with the people who matter most to you, your family, your colleagues at the workplace, your children, your closest friends. So, and of course, and I think well-being also includes having financial stability and sustainability, right? So in terms of balancing between financial stability and growth, I think this is something that most of us are always constantly working on, so that we have a sense of control, sense of well-being. So to the question as to what are some, why is the conversation being elevated these days about well-being at the workplace, and some common reasons, right, why it is perceived that there is perhaps declining well-being, right, at the workplace. I think stress is definitely on the rise, right? We have to acknowledge that. And for many of us, there are more uncertainties about the future than before, right? Work-life balance challenges, both work and life are increasingly demanding in various aspects. And at the workplace, performance push these days is deemed as a necessity for growth and survival. So these days at the workplace, there's a lot more concerns about well-being and to see what we can do about it, right, to support our workforce. Thanks for letting me share.
Thanks, Jenny. Yeah, definitely can attest to the stress level going up and the uncertainties up there. Tegway, Isabel, anybody want to share?
Yeah,
I
I
see.
thought I would like to build on from that. Yeah, Jenny is right. The first one
Right.
goes to cover most of the points. But for me personally, I think at the idea at work, right, my quick points was just that in today our generation and the younger generation especially, right, is the whole idea of like they're talking about the purpose and the meaning behind work, like why do they need to work? And I reflected this question a lot, like as I think also like in the past, right? I think there was a generation whereby a lot of the basic needs and safety needs, if you go by Maslow's hierarchies of needs, right, were not exactly met yet. And once we actually overcome that, right, people's aspiration has increased. And I think to me that's the reason why these conversations are coming out more and more, because once we got through that in terms of self-actualization, purpose at work, and stuff, right, there's a greater traction, and it also proves that there's a greater aspirations of the population in Singapore where we worked in, right, to move to a higher level of purpose in life. So I thought that was one point that I felt when I saw the question.
Okay, great. And then Isabel.
Yes. So to me, for this question is how would I define well-being? I guess from the Oxford Dictionary, it's basically defined as general health and happiness, basically being in an emotional and physical place. And my definition would really be at minimum being in a positive state of emotion, right? You don't have any negativity, you feel very happy and you feel very balanced. So to me, that's in essence really what well-being is about. And all the activities that actually come along are really to support that feeling of feeling good, feeling healthy. Why conversations have really sort of started to open up is obviously because of COVID in the last couple of years. A lot of initiatives were sort of hindered by that because everyone had to work from home. Nobody could really engage with each other, see each other. And now we're sort of like open up, and I think a lot of data has been shown in surveys, and particularly in real estate now, you find a lot of offices are starting to invest more in creating an environment that is more friendly and more healthy for the employees, whether it's to do with the lighting, whether there are plants in the office to really give that healthy feeling of energy, right? Because ultimately, when everyone was trying to come back, you kind of had to shift from being at home and sort of moving back into the energy of the workplace. So now that there's more conversations, and with a lot of support from the government as well, because they do a lot of campaigns and helping on mental well-being, and that really helps people being more aware about their self-health. And also, I think that well-being no longer just belongs to HR. It's actually a partnership with all the supervisors, with the managers and the leadership. It's really about the employers now taking ownership to help contribute to creating a positive work environment. And we want to sort of encourage more open conversations to have a greater work-life balance, and also to sort of enable trust for the employees to feel that this is a safe place, you know, not because mostly they've been at home, but at work, this is another place for them to feel that this is another place I can have a conversation. I actually won't be, impacted or penalized just because I was sharing something personal. And I think ultimately, a lot of the initiatives should have a partnership with the employer and the employee to really create a place, a desire to be more attractive. Because that's what I meant by a lot of real estate now create like gardens, you see like sky gardens, you know, where people can actually take a breather, do meditation. So a lot of it goes hand in hand, as well as a lot of activities that help, especially the new generation as Tate was shared, they want to find purpose in life. So, you could even sort of incorporate community initiatives like CSR, because that actually helps the next generation feel that they have a meaning, they're giving back to the community, and that helps encourage as well more positivity. At the same time, a lot of people feel very burnt out, and Singapore's actually been ranked the 4th most overworked city. And I think it's very good that the Singapore government are also looking at this, especially with the aging population, right? You want to sort of cover that multi-generation, not just the youngsters, but also our sort of aging population. How are we going to help them maintain better health, right? Particularly for working parents and families, because they actually have to be caregivers at home as well. So I think it sort of covers a sort of 360 in providing support, not just in the workplace, but also at home. I think
Great.
That's my share.
Thanks, Isabel. You covered quite a bit there. Maybe I can shift the question to Shane, right? Given that Growth Collective, you kind of conducted, several of these sessions, have about 200 plus people who've attended Growth Circles, in addition to people who attended the Growth Facilitator training. What are you observing in terms of what are common reasons behind the declining well-being at the workplace? Maybe you could share some of those anecdotes.
Sure. And I will also want to share a bit more from like the Find Your Ikigai SG program too, because we talk about purpose, right? And that program is about purpose. So I'll combine both together from the participants in Growth Circles and that. Because when we have people come in to find purpose, or just randomly listening to the different participants, and participants are across all age groups. So we have 17 all the way to like 80 years old that come. One of the top few words that come out as concerns would be life purpose, having no clarity or life's uncertainty of the future, relationship challenges. So it's either relationship with self or relationship with others. And then when people are also searching for their purpose, then it's really just not knowing the value or like the anchor that they can have in this world. Then another thing that comes up is also toxic workplaces. Could be tied to culture, could be tied to leaders. But I feel that, when everyone comes together, it's not so much about whether someone is toxic, but perhaps because there's no place for someone to share, and there's always that need to put up a front. So in our Growth Circle session, we do then see a lot of people then opening up more to say things and they will actually tell us that they have not said this before to anyone else. And when they can share that, it actually helps them with a sense of release, because they can gain new perspective. So I think perhaps a reason behind declining well-being is with all the change that's going on, where there's a lot of uncertainty now in the world and workplaces as well, people need to find an anchor to ground themselves, and they haven't found that for themselves. And an anchor could also then come in from that different perspectives, and also having that clearer vision and mission for themselves. The other one would be, because when we don't have that safe space to share, people can then overly utilize their strengths. So when someone overly utilizes their strengths, it will become a weakness, and that's when a blind spot happens and people go into a burnout phase, or they will go to extreme ends on how they conduct themselves, and that can really affect relationships. And once relationships are affected, that affects well-being as well. Then, of course, like what Isabel had shared before, a lot of the conversations that have come up would be caregivers, like the stresses that are being felt.
Okay, great. Thanks so much. I think definitely, as you called out, you've definitely seen news articles up there about toxic cultures, and that's something that we do as HR need to be on the lookout for and take care of our employees, handle, any grievances and so on properly. And I think employees do need to have that forum and outlet, otherwise it bottles up, and that does impact productivity and so on. I think, I can move on to the next question, which I would like to direct it to Jenny and Tegway to offer a little bit of a business perspective. So, in a global well-being survey done by Aon back in 2022-2023, they did highlight that improving employee well-being factors can actually enhance companies' performance by at least 11% and up to 55%. And so, to Jenny and Teck Wei, what are your thoughts on well-being as an important business agenda? Why are we here talking about well-being? And how does that benefit an organization, in your opinion, to balance productivity and care?
Right. Thanks, Karina, for sharing the question. I think in today's world, we are so globalized, it's so competitive, and the competition just keeps escalating. I will use the term escalating. And parallel to this is the digital transformation that is driving everything even faster, right? So we are trying to go faster, more competitive, and adapting to this pace of competitiveness, adapting to this pace of digital transformation is actually by no means an easy feat for organizations as well as individual workers alike, right? You talk about concerns whether jobs will have to be, how will jobs need to be redesigned? How does the workforce need to be reskilled? These are necessities, right? These are things we must approach, but at the same time, it does cause and add to the stress, right? So necessary stress. So there are fallouts and stress does get escalated along the way. So I think well-being management is really a set of human support skills to help us keep the quality of our human connections coherent and vital. So in terms of as a business agenda, we definitely have to look at well-being management so that we can manage our employee retention, right? And so that we can reduce burnout, increase by supporting well-being of our employees, of our workforce. It could be one way to help employees improve their focus at work, right? And therefore increasing the productivity over time at team level as well as for the individuals. So ultimately, it is in the interest of businesses as well to work on building well-being management as a set of management skills, right? And in the end, it would translate into better client experience, especially for some of us who are in the people services business sector, right? So to us, and that's where Excelling is. It's really key to be knowledgeable as to how we should be supporting well-being at work. That's my sharing.
Thanks, and Teck Wei.
Yeah, so for over at InspireTech, right, I think to be open, in my journey managing teams, right, I've met a lot of people and stuff, and when I reflect upon that, I really see that the well-being of an individual or the overall well-being of teams do actually make an impact in terms of the performance and the productivity. So that's why it's something that to me I look out for a lot. And on the second part with regards to balancing between productivity and care, right? So for my perspective is that it's less of like you have one and you have less of another. I do believe in the sense that, and I see certain team members thriving after having their care and well-being taken care of, and they can move on. So to put it more specifically, I think let me see if I put it into individuals and teams. So over at the individuals end, right, the more successful team members that I have is when that they have that feeling of trust and safety, and they're more self-aware of their strengths and weaknesses, and then they can embrace their weaknesses and growth better, and then they grow to become a more productive individual contributing to the business. So they have the well-being and they contribute to the business. And over at teams, right, I think we heard a lot about the people skills, being human that Shane shared earlier, right? And to me, this really brings down to the point of communication and trust. So we all know that when teams doesn't have very strong communication and very strong trust, they tend not to perform as well. And with this whole strengthening of people's skills and taking care of their well-being and stuff, I do see that it contributes to better communication and a higher level of trust. And this translates to then like a better team performance and going straight through to the business agenda. Yep. Oh, Karina, I think you are still muted.
Sorry.
Yes, hi.
Thanks. Yeah, I think, you bring up some good points, that, if somebody's less stressed about work, they are having, as you say, mental hierarchy needs taken care of, which is their well-being, their mental health, self-care, and so on. They could probably be a lot more productive at work. And so this is definitely something that organizations should look into. The next set of questions really relate to some of the programs and initiatives that HR professionals can consider driving within the workplace to establish that culture of well-being, to promote self-care, self-management amongst employees. So I'd like to direct that to Isabel. If you could share something about perhaps what you might be doing at Esselink.
Yes. So I think well-being is something that, being a professional services organization, people are really what we're all about, is really taking care of our employees, as well as making sure that they can better support some of our clients in the workplace. So some of the things that we have started doing is also sort of introducing health and wellness weeks that we have done at the organization, where we actually help to educate our employees very much from nutrition. For example, last week we ran our health and wellness week, where we actually every day had a different fruit, and we shared facts about the fruits, and we actually distributed that in the office so that people could enjoy, the fruits in the office and feel healthy every day. And at the same time, we sort of shared more about wellness activities, and we even have a sharing from our own HR team, actually, who actually does wushu as sort of a hobby and something that he's passionate about. And so that was something that was very interesting, because it's not very commonplace to hear something like that. And that was certainly an eye-opener for our employees. And at the same time, some of the things that I do, because I'm also very passionate about mental health, is that I actually run monthly meditation sessions. I'm not an expert, but I do feel that sometimes I need to take a time out as well. And by sort of running those monthly sessions, it allows me to have my break as well as sharing that sense of peacefulness. A time up for the employees. Maybe during the week they've been very hectic at the beginning of a Monday. So what I try to do is maybe do a midweek kind of meditation session. And we are also looking to sort of pilots around the growth circles in the organization. And obviously we're managing that progressively, because obviously it's not the same in a community. There's certain boundaries that we need to sort of make sure that we put into place, as well as guidelines. But definitely, well-being is really at the heart and center of ExcelLink's mission, because we really want to feel our employees feel valued and appreciated, at the same time happy and passionate about what they're doing. So we're always very busy, but at the same time we're very careful about checking in with our employees. Are they feeling all right? If there's anything serious, how can we help? Beyond just HR team, we really sort of partner with the other, key managers to help try and understand what our employees are facing. So that's actually my share.
Thanks, Isabel. Sounds like, there's quite a bit that you're putting in place in Esselink. I think, this is where I would love for the conferees or the people dialed in to maybe also type in the chat box different ideas that you've actually put in place that has worked well for your organization, so that we can also crowdsource amongst the attendees for interesting new ideas of how do you promote well-being and a culture of well-being at work. I'll actually like to turn the next question to Shane, where you had mentioned a little bit about, fostering psychological safety, psychological first aid, and so on. So how can employers actually better foster the psychological safe, open, and inclusive environment to best do that for the employees?
Great question. And it was something that I was covering yesterday also, as someone was asking me this question about how can you even do that when it's in a remote kind of work environment, right? One of the most important thing, well, I would say it's both like an employer and an employee-driven thing, because it can be both from ground up and top down, right? But what's most important is for leaders to set the context and actually, have the rules of engagement placed out clearly, and to share like the reason why we're doing the things that we do, and then be able to invite participation from everyone, that, and also be able to respond appropriately. Because if, for example, we say, hey, we are here where we want to listen to every single person's feedback, because everyone's opinions are valuable. And if the moment the next person says something and then we shoot that down, that's really going to kill like all effort. So then it really requires awareness also on the leader to be able to be that role model. It might be tough, but I think the easiest then is when we are very authentic, because like self-awareness is also tied to like, how you see yourself and how other people see you, right? So if there's convergence in that, it actually makes us for more effective leaders. And because that self-awareness is not something that can be done alone, so it's good for like these leaders to then have people around them who can actually point that out to them and say, hey, you mentioned this, just be mindful of what you just said, because it can kill like the very context or invitation that you just said. Right. So basically, if you have a strong culture, personal culture around ourselves, wherever we go and we live and breathe that, we would then be able to create that kind of inclusive, safe environment. But it still boils down to like the individual connection. But this can happen only like in the smaller, like if it's a small organization, smaller teams, right? So if you want to look at it from a larger organization point of view, then it will be the systems and processes that have to come into play as well. So it needs to then align with the context that has been set. And then getting also, just like in change management, right? You also need people on the ground to walk the talk. So you need to find these people who can walk the talk to help to infuse it in the culture.
Great, thanks. And I remember, I remember Techway, when we were having our little huddle prior as you're preparing for this session, you mentioned something about listening. And so maybe I thought maybe that would be a good sharing that you can provide to the audience.
Oh, yes. In fact, I was actually just writing this down because in line with what Shane has shared about like leaders usually have to start this. And as I grew in my career, right, about 10 plus years working, I do sense that especially for leaders and management position, because of our years of experience, right, we tend to share a lot, so we talk a lot more. And it's not a bad thing. There's something that we like to share our experience to let team members learn. And usually younger executives, they do like to listen also, but the problem with this is that it becomes a one-way communication. And I think many a times a lot of leaders do appreciate new perspectives that others do share. The only thing is that the conditions in the workplace sometimes don't facilitate that, because everybody is just used to that one-way communication. So I think the key point is really to have maybe the management and the HR executives, right, to start perhaps going through to like the growth facilitators course, because one of the key things that we learn is really active listening, controlling our urge to like share our wealth of experience and switch towards having that listening more. And I think that really helps, because a lot of team members, actually all they want to do in well-being sometimes is just to be heard about their issues and problems, and to see that there are efforts to move them forward and just grow along the way. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, as if you recall that slide that Shane had shared, there's the aspect of being present, being encouraging, and definitely, to be present, you need to keep quiet and listen to what the other person is sharing. Thank you. All right, I think I'm gonna ask a couple more questions before we open up. We see some Q&As, coming in. So let me just kind of sift through the questions here and pick some remaining pertinent ones, which I thought would be great for sharing. I think this question about, I think we heard from Isabel, creating that energy, that space, right? Especially as people are returning back to the workplace so that there's more team bonding and so on. So there's a question that, we had discussed during our huddle about what needs to happen with spaces and policies to create a workplace that has employees' well-being at the center. So I think, opening up to Jenny and maybe Teck Wei.
Yeah, thanks, Karina, for sharing the question about what needs to happen with spaces and policies at the workplace, right, to support the people's well-being, and how does success look like. To me, it can be as simple as when we see that groups of employees enjoy being with each other, going for lunch together. Our HR can also create, HR teams can also create makan sessions, breakfast sessions, right? I feel that when employees can bring their authentic selves to some extent, can contribute their personal interests or capabilities to share and value add to others in the company, that will be a good indicator that we have a safe place where people respect each other and they are happy to share good stuff with each other. Like Isabel has mentioned just now, one of our HR executives is a certified wushu instructor, right? And he very recently did a town hall sharing about his sport and actually doing demo, right? I wish I've got photos to share here with the Chinese spear and the sword, everything in action. So this is how success, a small success would look like to me, that our employees, our colleagues are happy to bring their personal interests to share at the workplace. I would also, besides wushu, we've got employees who share, like Isabel, passionate about meditation. We've got cycling, road cycling enthusiasts as well. I also think it's good to note that many of our organizations are transitioning or in hybrid mode, right? And it does help that when for such hybrid workplaces, hybrid arrangements, right, it's good for companies to mindfully have a digital company social media of some sort as a common engagement platform, so that your employees and the team managers and even management team can share their personal interests, right? Share photos about their travel, their recent vacation, share photos about their personal interests or family photos. So I think it is important to keep up with the times. Social media is a big part of our lives, and we should leverage that at company level to engage with our employees. So in terms of supporting well-being, creating that place where people can be social, I think that's one way to go. Yeah, one way to approach this. Thanks.
Thank you. Teck Wei, anything to add on?
Yeah, just a quick one in terms of the idea of physical spaces. So even though Inspire, we are SME, is a very small workspace that we have. Something interesting recently that I observed is that there's always a corner of the office where I kind of like have a slightly higher turnover rate and less of an engagement. So that made me realize like sometimes certain positions in the office might create an isolation zone. And while isolation zone I think is useful when people want to temporarily just have a quiet corner to think about something they are working on, I would say that it shouldn't be a permanent place, because it could have certain team members isolating from the rest of the company, and something we might want to watch out for. And in terms of how success would look like, right, I think something that I'm really also trying to aspire for is to have that higher level of trust and communication. So I used to hear experiences where by lunchtime sometimes, right, it's sort of like a place for the employees' well-being, because that's where they go and complain about their bosses, and we spend that whole 1 hour just venting out, right, as a means of well-being. And I think for that, how success will look like could be something like this small, whereby even whether lunchtime or what, right, people don't see that they need such an avenue to sort of like vent. All the difficult conversations and the difficult issues are openly engaged between management and employees, employees, and the whole company actually drives to a greater performance. And that's how I would envision the eventual success to be like.
Great. Thank you. Thank you all. I think I want to make sure I leave the last 15 minutes to some of the questions that have been pouring in. I don't see any specific questions addressed to anybody specific, so I'll just open it up to all. I'll just kind of go by sequence in terms of the questions asked. One of the questions posed were to check if anybody currently use the way to diagnose where an employee needs well-being help. Like, how do you observe? Is there anything that you need to be on the watch out for?
Okay, I can start first. I think for our current state now, currently we don't really have like a formalized way, but our team size is about 20 plus. So I kind of engage with about more than I do have a team of more than half of them, and I'm quite close to the entire team. So when we are for this certain size, I think what I would recommend is to then just to learn the people skills and be mindful as leaders of the people around. Sometimes there are a lot of telltale signs in terms of like personality change of an individual. And then sometimes to also be more aware of life stages. Like recently, I have a few of the colleagues that they became parents. So as part of a life stage change, right, there's a lot of things going on into an individual's life. We kind of like wish that the work can be business as usual, but as a human, right, this is definitely a shift and we have to embrace. And in fact, I think just last week I found out that another of our colleagues will be delivering soon, about a few months later. So these are things that for Inspired, our case, I just being aware of this and being sensitive to individuals' life stages is a way to sort of like be aware of employee well-being of the team.
Great, thank you. Anybody else want to add on?
Yeah, I think in larger organizations, it may be more difficult to have that personal engagement. So I think it's very much about encouraging, the supervisors or the managers of those particular people, having more regular, meals together or social interactions where they're able to maybe share a safe space of sharing maybe some of the challenges they're facing. Obviously, it's easier to administer, telltale signs of when a person is sick, for example, for a long period of time. I mean, something that I do sometimes is also just to check in that, is that person doing okay? Are they getting the necessary support? Maybe even advising them to seek more professional help if it is beyond, the workplace. So I think it's very much about engaging the managers of larger teams to really try and help understand better about some of the challenges that they may be facing. And sometimes employees tend to feel that they have a relationship with their managers, right? That they can actually share their personal challenges, and they don't really want to sort of share outside their own circle. But it's also about the managers having the trust with HR to really share maybe some of those things that's beyond their expertise, right? That's something that maybe HR can help support better, or even advise resources where they can actually seek more professional help. And at the same time, for like certain policies that we can extend, even in our medical, for example, if say they're facing any sort of mental issues, maybe we can even introduce a way for them to use medical benefit, for example. And there's no shame in seeking, mental health, for example. It doesn't have to necessarily be a physical, symptom. So that's my sharing.
If I may add, if I have a choice, I would involve HR in every business process. I would have HR join in every business meeting, whether internal or external, so that they can have visibility what's happening, right, to the employees. Did they have a stressful meeting with the client? I was just sharing with Isabel that day that sometimes, there are so many meetings happening at the same time. And sometimes we really don't know whether this supervisor is doing the appraisal for the employee well enough, for example. So we have limited visibility. Is there something we can do about it to support both employee and and the supervisor. So if I have a choice, HR should join every meeting, but that will really stretch out HR and tax their well-being of the HR folks. So and to share, sometimes when there's tension between team members, I realize, I'm not sure for other organizations, but in many organizations, HR may sometimes be the last to know, on the receiving end of things. And then they realize that this thing has already happened, and by that time, two team members are already fairly unhappy with each other. So I think it's important to kind of share and influence our key managers, the supervisors, the leaders, that if there is some potential issue that you anticipate, you can always sense these things, right? As a people manager, if you sense that it's turning a little sour, they should be sharing with HR earlier, right? So that HR can help mediate or intervene, can be indirectly, very discreetly, at the early stage, rather than when things have fully turned sour. So the earlier HR is involved and given visibility, I think the overall well-being of the workplace should be better. So my sharing on this.
Yes, I see some of the conferees actually agreeing with you as well. Agreeing with you. I think I have time, because I'll be mindful that we can end sharp at 1:30. I might have to choose a bit of the questions here. I think this one maybe I'll pose just to Shane. I need a bit of a site background. The question is related to, is multitasking possible or only myth? Is it true that the human's positive mind and well-being is developed? Is it true that humans' positive mind and well-being are not dependent on the environment? Not sure point of view on this.
Sorry, Karina, because it's a little bit choppy, so I'm not very sure of the question.
Yeah,
on your end.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, but it's a bit choppy. But I think, Shane, we can see the question. I think she's looking at the one whereby multitasking, is it possible or only a myth? And is it true that the human positive mind and well-being development is dependent on the environment? I guess you can answer that.
I think, our brain requires focus. So even though we think we are multitasking, actually we are just doing many things. We're doing one thing at any one point in time, but in that one period of time, we're doing many things, but in many bite size. So I would say that possible is possible, but it really can tire the brain a lot because you're overly stretching the brain. Unless, of course, there are different people, because of the different attention span that we have, we thrive in that kind of, stop, start, switch kind of an environment. So then that depends on person to person as well. And that's why the awareness is so important, right? Because I might have somebody who is I can't really sit down for very long to just do one thing. I need to do a few different, I need to be always stimulated. So they might want to be looking at different things at the same time, or to change focus every few minutes. I think we also see that a lot in the youths today, right? They always said that, what is it, Podomoro clock in front of them, and then they will put okay, maybe just 15 minutes, and then after that they will switch. So yeah, then it's about how we define multitasking. Then the second question, whether it's true that humans' positive mind and well-being development are dependent on the environment, I would say yes and no. Yes, because we are all human beings, and it's very easy for us to get affected by external factors, right? And also whether there's the support over there. But the second thing that actually enables our own well-being is also our personal awareness of ourselves and our needs, and what we can do about it to drive that. So that's the emotional regulation part, and our own individual resilience to be able to take a step back from what's going on, to just see what's going on here and how can I reframe this to be something that's useful for me and better for me, so that I'm not dependent on the environment. So that's why the internal aspect of how we support ourselves for well-being is key. But that requires that needs. So I think just wanted to share a bit more to based on some of the earlier questions, I think well-being is really about understanding our needs. And if we don't understand our needs, we won't begin to know even how to like deal with that. Just like emotions, right? We have emotions because emotions is an information to tell us that we need something and we have to address it. If we don't address it, it will always stay. And then when it accumulates, it's like a volcano eruption. By that point, then it's a bit, it's harder to go into the preventive stage. Yeah.
Yeah. Great. Sorry, I don't know why my audio is acting up. You can still hear me. But I thought maybe we can close out. Fixel was closing out this section. So firstly, I'd like to thank Shane, Jenny, Isabel, and Techway for the wonderful sharing insights that they have shared with us. And I guess I will now hand it over to Andy to do his final closing, so that we can conclude this Conferment event on the T-Shot. Over to you, Andy.
Thank you, Karina, and our panelists. It was indeed a refreshing discussion, and as a certified member myself, I really look forward to tapping on the strategies myself at the workplace. Before we end today's ceremony, I would like to share the upcoming events for the year. The programs that we are rolling out can be broadly categorized under 3 areas: strategic HR, HR digitalization, and tripartite standards. So do look out for the 2 Growth Circles events that we'll be putting up soon, one on the 21st of June and the other one on the 13th of July. So you can use the feedback form to share with us if you're interested in the event, and we will contact you in return. So to register for our events, do look out for our EDMs and our posts on LinkedIn and IHRP Connect. We would also appreciate if your feedback for today's ceremony and panel's discussion. Please scan the QR code and share your thought with us. Thank you and have a good day.